I know ever since I've seen the Beatles on Ed Sullivan or something, I wanted to do this, you know. And also you want to we were kind of disgusted with the music we were hearing also in America on the radio. Everything's kind of very...
The Ramones, the band that helped create punk rock, won over a generation with their loud energy, rebellious attitude, and simple, catchy songs. But their journey wasn't always easy. From their early days on the tough streets of Queens, New York, to their sudden rise to fame that rocked the music scene, their story is full of twists and turns. Join us as we explore the heart of their adventure. The Ramones was a band that changed music history, even though they didn't become famous in the way most big bands did. The band is now known as one of the pioneers of punk rock. Back then, no one really knew what punk rock was, but the Ramones were about to help create it. The band was made up of 4 original members, each of whom took the last name Ramone, even though they weren't related at all. They did this because Paul McCartney of the Beatles used a fake name, Paul Ramone, when he checked into hotels. So, the Ramones decided to use similar names. Joey was the lead singer, Dee Dee played bass, Johnny was the guitarist, and Tommy was the drummer. They all adopted the Ramone surname and formed a tight-knit group. Even though the Ramones never got huge mainstream success, they were hugely important in shaping the punk music scene. Punk was all about rejecting the complicated and often pretentious styles of other music, and the Ramones made music that was simple, fast, and rebellious. They played short, energetic songs with catchy melodies. Their music was raw and full of energy, and their look, ripped jeans, leather jackets, and messy hair, became iconic. They were raw, but real. Over the years, the band played over 2,000 concerts. They toured almost constantly, bringing their loud, fast music to people all around the world. Despite not selling millions of albums or becoming rich and famous, they were adored by fans and were a big influence on future punk bands. The Ramones kept playing together for over 2 decades, releasing 14 studio albums. They kept their music straightforward, even if they didn't always get the commercial attention they deserved. Sadly, all 4 of the original members passed away over time. Over the years, the band's lineup changed a few times, but Joey and Johnny were the only 2 original members who stayed throughout. In 1996, after a farewell tour with the Lollapalooza Music Festival, the band played their final concert in Los Angeles, ending an era. Despite not becoming massive stars, the Ramones' influence on music is undeniable. They didn't just help create punk rock, they helped make music about rebellion and freedom that inspired future generations to pick up guitars and make their own loud, energetic music. Over time, people started to realize how much the band had shaped music, especially punk rock. In 2004, Rolling Stone magazine ranked the Ramones number 26 on their list of the 100 greatest artists of all time. Then, Video Hits 1 placed them at number 17 on their list of the 100 greatest artists of hard rock. The Ramones were even recognized by Spin magazine, where they were ranked the 2nd greatest band of all time, right behind the Beatles. Their influence wasn't just talked about by fans and critics, but they also started receiving official recognition. In 2002, the Ramones were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame during their very first year of eligibility. This was a huge honor and a clear sign of how much they meant to music history. Then, in 2011, the band was awarded the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, which celebrated their lasting impact on music and culture. Although the Ramones had disbanded years before, their legacy continued to grow, showing that sometimes being ahead of your time takes a while to be fully appreciated. But how did all this begin? The original members of the Ramones all grew up in the same middle-class neighborhood of Forest Hills in Queens, New York City. It was a quiet and ordinary place, but it soon became home to a band that changed music forever. The members of the band met when they were still in high school, at Forest Hills High School, and they each had different musical backgrounds before coming together to form the Ramones. John Cummings, later known as Johnny Ramone, and Thomas Erdelyi, who would become Tommy Ramone, were friends from way back. For 2 years, they were part of a high school garage band called the Tangerine Puppets. They loved playing music together, but their band never became famous. They then met Douglas Colvin, who had just moved to the neighborhood from Germany. Colvin later became known as Dee Ramone. Dee had a different musical background, and he quickly became friends with Johnny and Tommy. The band started to take shape in early 1917-4 when Johnny and Dee invited Jeff Hyman to join them. Jeff Hyman had been the singer for a glam rock band called Sniper, which had been active for a while. The four of them began to practice together, each one of them having a role to play. At first, they planned for Dee to play guitar and sing, Johnny to play guitar, Hyman, who would become Joey Ramone, to play drums, and their friend Richie Stern to play bass. However, it quickly became clear that Richie could not play bass well, and so he was no longer part of the group. The band became a trio, with Dee switching from guitar to bass and also singing. Johnny, now the only guitarist, focused on his role, and Joey became the drummer. Dee, the one who had the idea to form the band, also came up with the name Ramones. He was inspired by Paul McCartney. Dee convinced everyone else to take on the name as well, so Joey became Joey Ramone, Johnny became Johnny Ramone, and Dee became Dee Ramone. They soon started rehearsing and creating their unique sound, which would become known as punk rock. Their time at Forest Hills High School shaped them into the band that would forever change the world of music, and their friendships and experiences in this quiet neighborhood were the beginning of something much bigger. In the early days of the Ramones, the band was still figuring things out. They needed help with organizing and rehearsing, and that's when a friend of the band, Monty A. Melnick, stepped in. Monty worked at performance studios in Manhattan, and he helped the band book time to practice. At the same time, Johnny's former bandmate, Thomas Lee, later known as Tommy Ramone, was set to become the band's manager. Soon after the band was formed, there was a problem. Dee realized that he couldn't sing and play bass at the same time. With Tommy's encouragement, Joey Ramone stepped up to become the new lead singer. However, there was another challenge ahead. Joey, who was initially the drummer, soon realized that he couldn't sing and play drums at the same time either. So, the band had to find a new drummer. When they auditioned potential drummers, Tommy often showed them how to play the songs. It became clear that Tommy was the best person for the job, and he joined the band as the drummer, taking the name Tommy Ramone. The Ramones played their first show on March the same year they started, at Performance Studios. They played fast and short songs, many of them lasting less than 2 minutes. This was the start of something new, and soon, a punk music scene began to form in New York. 2 clubs in Manhattan, Max's Kansas City and CBGB, became centers of this new music. The Ramones played at CBGB for the first time in August. Legs McNeil, who would later help start Punk Magazine, remembered the performance. He said the Ramones looked striking in their black leather jackets, and their music was loud and fast. He described it as a wall of noise, something completely new and different from what was going on in music at the time. The Ramones were not like the hippie bands. They were something fresh and exciting. The band became regulars at CBGB, playing there 74 times by the end of the year. Their performances were quick, often just 17 minutes long, but they gained a lot of attention. Because of their hard work and growing popularity, the band was signed to a recording contract by Seymour Stein of Sire Records in late 1975. It was Craig Leon, the A&R man at Sire, who first saw the band and brought them to Stein's attention. Stein's wife, Linda Stein, saw the band at a club called Mothers, and she became one of their co-managers along with Danny Fields. By this time, the Ramones were being recognized as the leaders of the new punk scene in New York. Their unique sound and style stood out. Other singers in the city were trying to imitate David Johansen from the New York Dolls, who, in turn, was copying Mick Jagger of the Rolling Stones. But Joey Ramone was different. As Dee Ramone explained, Joey was unique, totally unique, and it was this uniqueness that helped the band become the face of punk rock. Did it just happen overnight? How did the Ramones rise to stardom? In February 1976, the Ramones recorded their first album, Ramones. It was a big moment for the band, as it marked the beginning of their musical journey on record. The album had 14 songs, but most of them were very short. The longest song, I Don't Want to Go Down to the Basement, barely lasted more than 2.5 minutes. This was part of their style, quick, loud, and straight to the point. Although all the band members helped with the songwriting, Dee Dee Ramone did most of the writing. The songs were a mix of fast rhythms and simple, catchy lyrics, often about rebellious, fun, or silly topics. The album was produced by Craig Leon from Sire Records, with Tommy Ramone helping as the associate producer. They recorded the whole thing on a very tight budget of only $6,400. Despite the low budget, the album captured the raw energy of the band and their punk rock style. The cover photo of the band, which became iconic, was taken by Roberta Bailey, a photographer for Punk Magazine. The same month the album came out, Punk Magazine ran a cover story on the Ramones, helping to introduce the world to this new kind of music coming out of CBGB. The magazine was an important part of the early punk scene and helped spread the word about the band. When the album came out, it received great reviews from rock critics. Robert Christgau of The Village Voice wrote that he loved the album, even though it flirted with images of brutality. He said the album blows everything else off the radio. In Rolling Stone, Paul Nelson praised the album, calling it a burst of energy that rock and roll hadn't seen in a long time, comparing the Ramones to authentic American primitives. Newsday's Wayne Robbins went even further, calling the Ramones the best young rock and roll band in the known universe. The debut album marked the beginning of the Ramones' journey as pioneers of punk rock, and it became a major influence on future generations of musicians, even though it didn't make them superstars at the time. But the energy and style of the Ramones album set the stage for everything that would follow in the punk scene. Despite the excitement and hope that Sire Records had for the Ramones album, it didn't perform well commercially. The album only reached number 111 on the Billboard charts, and the two singles released from it, Blitzkrieg Bop and I Wanna Be Your Boyfriend, didn't make it onto the charts either. This was a disappointment, especially considering how much the band and their label had hoped for success. The Ramones' first major performance outside of New York took place in June in Youngstown, Ohio. While they were there, they met members of the Cleveland punk band, the Dead Boys. The two bands hit it off and became friends, sharing a bond over their love of punk rock music. However, it wasn't until the Ramones went on a short tour in England that they started to see the rewards of their hard work. They played a show at the Roundhouse in London, and it was a huge success. The show was organized by Linda Stein, and the crowd loved the energy and raw sound the band brought. Even Mark Bolan, the famous leader of T-Rex, was there, and he was invited on stage by the Ramones. That performance, along with a second show the next night where they met members of the Sex Pistols and The Clash, helped to inspire the growing punk rock scene in the UK. Their Roundhouse performance made them a hit in the UK, and the punk scene there began to pick up steam. A month later, the Ramones played in Los Angeles, where they performed alongside the Flamin' Groovies at the Roxy Theater. This show helped to energize the punk scene in California. The Ramones were becoming more and more popular as a live act, and their performance in Toronto later that year further fueled the growing punk scenes in other cities. The Ramones continued to work hard and released two more albums in 1977, Leave Home and Rocket to Russia. Both albums were produced by Tommy Ramone and Tony Bongiovi, who was the second cousin of John Bon Jovi. Unfortunately, Leave Home had even less commercial success than their debut album. Still, it included a song called Pinhead, which became one of their signature songs, known for its catchy chant of Gabba Gabba Hey. The album also featured a fast-paced cover of the song California Sun, which had originally been recorded by Joe Jones, though the Ramones based their version on the remake by the Rivieras. Even though the Ramones were not achieving mainstream commercial success, their music was resonating with punk fans, and they were building a dedicated following. Their live performances were becoming legendary, and their influence on the punk scene continued to grow, both in the United States and abroad. Rocket to Russia, released the same year, became the Ramones' most successful album so far. It reached number 49 on the Billboard 200 chart, which was a big achievement for the band. The album received great reviews, with critic Dave Marsh from Rolling Stone calling it the best American rock and roll of the year. This recognition showed that the band was starting to get the attention they deserved. One of the big milestones for the Ramones with this album was that it featured their first single to ever enter the Billboard charts, Sheena is a punk rocker. Though it only reached number 81 on the chart, it was a breakthrough for the band, showing they were gaining popularity. Their next single, Rockaway Beach, did even better, reaching number 66. This became the highest charting single the Ramones would ever have in America, marking another important step in their rise. Later that year, the Ramones played a live concert at the Rainbow Theatre in London. This performance was recorded and became their live double album, It's Alive. The album title was a nod to the horror movie It's Alive, adding a fun connection to the band's energetic, rebellious style. Even though the Ramones weren't huge commercial superstars, Rocket to Russia showed that their music was making an impact and gaining fans. The success of the album and its singles helped solidify their place in punk rock history. But what was their aftermath like? In the late 70s and early 80s, the Ramones went through major changes that shaped their music and career. In 1970-80, drummer Tommy Ramone left the band, tired of touring, but continued working with them as a producer. Mark Bell, later known as Marky Ramone, joined as the new drummer. That same year, the band released Road to Ruin, featuring the iconic song I Wanna Be Sedated. The album experimented with acoustic guitars and ballads, but didn't make a big impact on the charts. Then, the Ramones gained attention by appearing in the movie Rock and Roll High School. The next year, they worked with famous producer Phil Spector on End of the Century, their most commercially successful album. The process was difficult, with Spector's slow, perfectionist methods clashing with the band's fast, raw style. Rumors of Spector threatening bassist Dee Dee Ramone with a gun circulated, though Marky later denied these claims. The album reached number 44 on the US charts and 14 in the UK, featuring hits like Baby, I Love You, and Do You Remember Rock and Roll Radio? Some members felt the polished sound strayed too far from their punk roots. Also, the Ramones released Pleasant Dreams, which leaned toward a more polished pop rock style in an attempt to get more radio play. However, it didn't perform well in the US. Their album, Subterranean Jungle, brought them back to a simpler punk sound mixed with pop influences. The album featured 3 different drummers on the single Time Has Come Today, and it became the last Ramones album to enter the Billboard Top 100, reaching number 83. Despite mixed reactions to their evolving sound, the Ramones' influence remained strong. Their music continued to evolve, blending punk with other styles, and their legacy endured as pioneers of punk rock. In the mid-80s, the Ramones went through major changes, but stayed true to their punk roots. After drummer Marky Ramone was fired due to alcohol problems, Richie Ramone joined, bringing new energy and helping revitalize the band. They played a legendary show in São Paulo, Brazil, where the crowd's passion showed their global influence. Around the same time, they made a bold political statement with the song Bonzo Goes to Bitburg, protesting President Reagan's visit to a German cemetery with Nazi graves. The track appeared on their album Animal Boy, which embraced a raw, noisy sound that fans loved. Through all the changes, the Ramones kept pushing forward, keeping their rebellious punk spirit alive. By the late 80s, the Ramones faced big changes. Animal Boy earned praise for its outsider-themed lyrics, but tensions grew, leading to drummer Richie Ramone's exit after clashing with Johnny over money. Blondie's Clem Burke briefly filled in as Elvis Ramone, but was quickly replaced by a sober Marky Ramone. The band then released Brain Drain, featuring the hit Pet Sematary, but personal struggles weighed heavily, especially on bassist Dee Dee Ramone. After completing the album and touring, Dee Dee left the band, performing his final show in 1989. Christopher C.J. Ramone replaced him, playing with the band until their breakup. Dee Dee pursued other music projects, but remained a lasting influence on the Ramones' legacy. What was their later years like? In the 1990s, the Ramones kept making music and performing, even as their career neared its end. After leaving Sire Records in 1991, they signed with Radioactive Records and released Mondo Bizarro the following year, which became a hit in Brazil and earned them their first gold certification. Soon, they released Acid Eaters, an album of cover songs, and made a memorable appearance on The Simpsons. Their final album, Adios Amigos, followed suit, but sales were disappointing. the band announced they would break up in 1996 and went on a farewell tour, including performing at Lollapalooza. Their last show was on August in Hollywood, joined by rock legends like Lemmy and Eddie Vedder. Though the band ended, their impact on punk rock remains unforgettable. After the Ramones ended, the band members went their separate ways, but their legacy grew stronger. In 1999, the surviving members reunited for a special autograph signing, marking the last time the original four, Joey, Johnny, Dee Dee, and Tommy, appeared together. Joey passed away in 2001 after battling cancer, and in 2002, the band was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Sadly, Dee Dee died the same year from a substance overdose. Johnny passed away in 2004 after fighting cancer, and Tommy, the last original member, died in 2014. Even after their deaths, the Ramones' influence endured. New York honored Joey with Joey Ramone Place, and Queens named a street the Ramones Way. The band earned a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2011, and their debut album finally went gold in 2014, 38 years after its release. In 2021, Netflix announced a biopic about Joey, keeping their punk spirit alive. Though the original members are gone, the Ramones' music and rebellious energy continue to inspire fans worldwide. Did they ever encounter any tension? The Ramones were a legendary punk band, but behind the music, their relationships were filled with conflict. Joey and Johnny had the biggest rift as their personalities clashed. Joey was a free spirit, while Johnny was strict and disciplined. The breaking point came when Johnny started dating Joey's girlfriend, Linda, causing a deep personal betrayal. Some believe this inspired the song, "The KKK Took My Baby Away." From that moment on, Joey and Johnny barely spoke, even staying distant when Joey was dying. Dee Dee also struggled with substance addiction and mental health issues, adding to the band's chaos. Tommy, the original drummer, left the band because of the toxic environment, feeling pushed out by Johnny, ignored by Joey, and mistreated by Dee Dee. Even with new members, the drama continued, often fueled by disagreements over money and the band's image. Some arguments were made public, like a heated fight between Joey and Marky on The Howard Stern Show. Tensions lingered even after the band ended. Marky publicly called CJ a bigot, possibly due to CJ marrying Marky's niece, and their relationship was never repaired. The Ramones' music made history, but their personal struggles and unresolved conflicts became part of their legacy, showing that even punk rock legends weren't immune to heartbreak and tension. What legacy did they leave behind? The Ramones changed music by creating a raw, fast, and simple sound that sparked the punk rock movement. In the 70s, when rock was getting more complex, they stripped everything down to short, loud songs full of energy. Their first album became a blueprint for punk, showing that passion and attitude mattered more than technical skill. Their impact spread worldwide, especially in the UK, where bands like The Clash and Sex Pistols were inspired after seeing them live. In California, they influenced hardcore punk bands like Black Flag and Bad Religion. Beyond punk, their fast-playing shaped heavy metal, inspiring musicians like Kirk Hammett from Metallica and Lemmy from Motorhead. Even alternative rock bands like Nirvana and Green Day felt their influence. Though they never reached mainstream superstardom, the Ramones became legends. Their do-it-yourself spirit showed that anyone could make music, and their songs like Blitzkrieg Bop remain iconic. The Ramones may not have been widely recognized in their time, but they sparked a musical revolution that will never be forgotten. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.